we've undergone more change in the last 500,000 years than in the previous 50 million years.
Right. And that's by creating feedback loops and possibilities of greater iteration.
But symbolism is unknown outside in nature, except at the molecular level, where it actually is necessary. I mean, a codon like guanine, adenine symbolizes something. It doesn't. It isn't.
Right.
Do you understand the distinction between symbolizing and signifying?
It has no relationship to any mechanical process.
Right. It's simply an arbitrary assignment of relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the development of the media space then as a whole is another evolutionary step in some ways.
Well, it's an intensifying of this language behavior. See, that's the other thing to notice about language, that it's a behavior. If you meet someone who is unable to speak, at first this may escape you. I mean, they look like an ordinary human being, 2 arms, 2 legs, eyes, so forth. But what they lack is a behavior. And it's the most complex behavior that we have, which is interesting then that we acquire it so early in life. I mean, nothing else you do will ever in complexity exceed the acquisition of your local language. And the question genetic, epigenetic, is complicated. I mean, I don't know if you've read Chomsky, but he's trying to argue there that there are what are called deep structural rules that are somehow genetic, that allow us to, because it's a great mystery for linguists to understand how is it that a person can correctly identify as a sentence thousands of utterances that they have never heard before, that are entirely unfamiliar to them, and yet they can say, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, and can parse this very easily with no internally articulatable sense of grammar at all. This is something almost like a magical ability we have to tell sense from nonsense. Chomsky wanted to argue that there were in the organism genetic scripts for this, which leads to the concept that these so-called rules of deep structure not only tell you what makes sense in English, they tell you what makes sense in any possible language. And that's actually the claim of the Chomskyan school, that all languages will be found to have these deep structural rules, that in fact having these deep structures is what being a language means.